Okay. I'm just calling order. Okay. Can we call to order and roll call, please?
Thurston?
Here.
Oh my gosh. Hallett.
Here.
King.
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
Utz.
Here. Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, we have citizens' time. Is there anybody here that does not have an item on the agenda or a current application that would like to speak? Okay. Next, we have approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve our meeting minutes for both our regular meeting on July 21st and our special meeting on July 28th?
A motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved.
Minutes are approved. Okay, let's start through with our agenda items. The first item on the agenda is ZP 2021-08162021, a fence application for 15009 Gotham Manor Place.
Thank you. So the fence application you guys have before you tonight is for a residential fence. The fence has received the HOA approval from Sherwood Forest HOA.
Turn that last one off, that last one off. See if I can-
Okay. The fence has received the HOA approval from the Sherwood Forest neighborhood. It does meet with what is currently out there in the other residential parcels. The fence is 6 feet in height. That 6 feet will not start until it is behind the front facade as we require. It is only going to be on the two sides as it's meeting up with other fences that pre-exist. And it's a board-on-board style, and it is to be stained a light brown color. So with that, I recommended approval for this application. Are there any questions? The applicant was unable to make it, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to note that when I spoke with Emily today, she had mentioned that this is the type of application with the ordinance amendments that we may want to look into her being able to approve administratively. So the ordinance allows for these fences. It's already governed by another architecture review board. It's not on a major corridor, so.
It's a continuation of a fence that's already there, so it's another section of a fence, the
That's
same.
correct.
Okay. No questions? Anybody else have any questions? Okay, motion?
Sure. I move the board approves COA ZP 2021, right in the packet, 2021-0816, for the fence addition at 15009 Gotham Manor Place. The fence shall be located behind the front facade, 6 feet in height, wood material, and stained light brown.
I second.
Roll call?
Roll call.
Thurston?
Yes.
Hallett?
Yes.
King?
Aye.
Schneider?
Aye.
Utz?
Aye.
Real quick note, I have changed the numbers of the zoning applications when they come in. We're starting a new tracking where we're using the date of the application to assist with making sure we're staying on our timeline. So, sorry to throw you off there with that different number as you
Should
were
I
reading
make
it.
a friendly amendment?
No, no,
Okay.
no, you had it right. I just, when you were reading it, I know it's different than our normal 0, 0, 1, 2, 3,
Gotcha.
et cetera, so.
Thanks.
Okay, our next application. We're on packet page 16. So our next application is from Aldi. It is they're seeking approval for gooseneck lighting above the already approved Aldi sign. So when they originally came in, there was some miscommunication, and they had thought that they received approval for channel lettering that would allow for internally illuminated. This is not allowed in the industrial zone. So after several conversations back and forth, there was a recommendation by myself to the applicant to consider adding gooseneck lighting or some type of lighting that would shine down onto the signs so that their customers would be able to see it better at night. So on page 24, you'll see that they've supplied a rendering of where these lights would go. If you use your computer screen, you can zoom in a little bit easier, but it's going to be gooseneck lighting over both of the tenant building signs. So the Aldi is on the left, and then you would have the second tenant on the right. They're going to go ahead and do both at the same time so that they match. And the gooseneck itself can be seen on page 29. And the page just before is the colored rendering. It will be black in color, and they will have 4 above each sign. They have nestled 2 in between each of the windows there.
Okay. It looks very similar to some of the gooseneck lighting that we're seeing that's going to be coming across the street.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And again, this applicant was unable to travel down for the meeting, so I'm happy to take any questions, suggestions, or options back to them.
The color of the goosenecks are going to be black.
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be a powder-coated, polished black.
No comments, I think it's fine. Obviously, you have the backlit, channel lit on the rest of it, but in this instance, it's actually a separate building. The two are separated, so hopefully the physical separation will not sort of set off the fact that some are internally illuminated and some are not. So I think this
And-
is a good compromise between the two.
And one of the discussions that I had with the applicant is that we are currently in a zoning ordinance amendment phase, and that there could be a possibility, once that makes its way through council, that they could have more options at a later date. They're very hopeful for opening in October, so they wanted to go ahead and get their sign done and illuminated, whether it was with gooseneck or otherwise. So you may see them come back in the future with a different sign, but for now, this is what they decided they would work towards for opening.
I think it looks nice, and I don't think, we told them this before, I don't think it's going to matter. People are going to know it's Aldi, whether the sign is backlit or it's lit by gooseneck, so
Right.
I'll find them. Okay.
And if you go to page 19, there is a motion prepared for you.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move the Architectural Review Board to approve ZP 2021-080621 for the addition of 4 black gooseneck lights above the Aldi channel lettering sign that is not internally illuminated, and 4 black gooseneck lights above the second tenant's sign area as shown on the August 4th, 2021 sketch presented by the applicant.
Do I have a second? Roll call?
Larson?
Aye.
Hallett?
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Utz.
Aye.
Okay.
Do we know, have they identified a tenant for the?
They have not yet. I did ask them last week if they had any ideas. The Aldi representative had not had any ideas at that time. I will be speaking with the property owner tomorrow on another topic, so I can inquire, see if anybody's come up.
Any revised timeline for the opening?
For Aldi?
Mhm.
No,
Oh,
right-
October, you said October.
Yeah, right now, October, I did let them know we have Haymarket Day, so hopefully it wasn't the same day, but if it was, it'd be a great celebration. So I think they're looking for early October, but they're gonna get with us on a grand opening for anybody to attend that wanted to. Okay, our next agenda item, we are at the 6712 Jefferson Street application, and we're on page 30 of the agenda packet. So we began discussing this application for demolition request of the front structure at 6712 Jefferson Street at the last meeting. Following that meeting, we resulted in a deferral till this meeting, and we had talked about doing a site visit as well as providing more information and research on the property. So we completed that site visit the following week, I believe it was, there at the structure, and I believe almost everybody was able to attend. So I know you guys all had the opportunity to go in. And then in addition, let me get to the page. Our planning assistant, Sam Lewis, was able to work with the Relic Library, and she was able to pull together a report that starts on page 61 of your packet. And so what she was able to find was some of the history on the ownership of the parcel. The Relic Library was able to share how it transferred. It was originally part of a larger parcel, how that was sold off in portions, and some of that background. So she's put that together here for us. And then I know it's a little bit faded, but we have supplied additional documentation that is on the following pages. A lot of that's very light and hard to read, that she encompassed in her report. I have a different hard copy I can provide if that's necessary. Ultimately, we were unable to find any information on the Baker last name. I know we had one question about who the Baker was. In our list of contributing resources, this home is labeled as the Baker Bean property. So we were unable to find the Baker. We were able to essentially read and find the same information that was given to us by the applicant, that Mr. Bean's mother lived in the structure. She was the mayor at one point. And we also, on page 70, were able to find the DHR report that was done in 2012, October of 2012. And so this was completed when the I-66 improvements were happening. They sent out a staff member to do an assessment of the local structures for the historic resources. And so you can see here just the primary information, the type of architectural style, the number of stories, the condition at the time, approximate date of construction, the type of use. You also have on the top of 71 the exterior components that were seen. And then ultimately, you do have that the Virginia Department of Historic Resources said it was not eligible for their historic resource list. Does not mean it's not locally historic, but that was the finding through Virginia at the time. And then Sam also included some of the photos that she came across out of that report. And then lastly, one thing that we did run into a little bit in some of our Relic research and other research was You'll see on 77, there's a small highlight. So the Masonic Lodge was popping up with the same house number, but we're specifically talking about 6712 Jefferson. We're not talking about the Masonic Lodge. So that popped up a little bit in our findings as well. So I can answer any questions that the board may have. The applicant is here tonight, as well as the property owners, and I'm sure that they would be happy to come up to the podium and chat, answer any questions that the board may have.
You said that it's not considered a historical building.
Through
For-
the Virginia Department of Historic Resources, when they did their report, they said that it would not be eligible for the historic inventory through Virginia.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have some comments, but I'd be interested in if any of the other committee has comments before I report out on what the council had to say.
Yeah, go ahead. Marcia and I were able to have a quick conversation earlier today. I had some questions about the report, and so we did talk about some details. So he has some commentary just based on his notes. And I was curious about that, Susie, as well, because I did see in here, even though I didn't know that we had that DHR report, so it was interesting to see, even though it's not on the historic register, just it still says it's considered a contributing resource to the Haymark Historic District, and it's noted in there. I found that kind of
Yeah.
So last month, well, first of all, I would say to the Bean family and to the applicant, we can certainly appreciate the challenge that you're placed in with the decision that you're having to make with the pending court case and the application you were asked to put forward, the option you were given to demolish one of the houses. I find this particularly challenging for the ARB, given our charge, that your preferred option was to keep both houses, and we would have the resource still contributing. So it does put us in a precarious situation where we understand your position. We're at a challenge to evaluate it, given the conditions under which you're being asked to present the application. I did go back to the council last month. I had mentioned as a liaison, I would go back and say, the current state is the state that meets all our ARB ordinances and policies. Is there not some other opportunity or some other option for us as the town to be able to, for lack of a better term, another option to settle the case with the applicant and not have to lose the resource? They had charged staff with doing that research. That research is going to be reported out, unfortunately, after this meeting date. It's not till the next council meeting. And even if it's reported out, I don't know that the council is going to make a decision on whether or not to vet these other options and give them the applicant the opportunity to do that. I know the Bean family wants to move out tonight. You mentioned last month you're anxious to move on. I would assume that you would not want to wait for the council to figure out what they wanted to do to get a decision on this application. You want to move forward and not wait any longer on a decision. So that sort of puts us in a position tonight of either having voted up or voted down. I think the first option, am I that correct, that your preference would not be to delay this decision? You need a decision to move forward?
It's been like 14 months now.
Yeah, so understood, and that's, so the thing is,
I'm paying town taxes on both units. I'm paying, you know, the electric in the one house to keep the sump pump stuff going.
gotcha. Okay, so it's pretty clear that you want to move forward with the decision,
Well,
so.
I mean, I'd like to,
Okay. Thank you for that. So so that being said, the two options of either, there's kind of a no-win situation for both parties. If we were to deny it, I think given the impetus is a court settlement and it's a choice between removing two structures, and it's a financial decision to remove this one versus the older one due to its age, that is not really a criteria for us to consider as a justification to demolish it. That is sort of a separate entity, so it puts us in a challenge there. Normally, we would see, so I kind of have an organization of my thoughts here. So the second part is normally we would have some sort of in addition to the photographs, some sort of analysis that says, validates the structure. But I appreciate last time, you're like, why would you put that money into that analysis when your preferred situation is not to have to take either building down? So I can appreciate not wanting to put that money in. But again, if we were to approve it, then we do not have that baseline with which we've normally established to vote it. So if we were to deny it, the applicant would either have to look at pulling the other building down to meet the terms of the proposed settlement. The applicant would also have the option to appeal it to the council, which might be the better situation, because then the council can review it in tandem with, to say, hey, this one option for demolition was not an option based on the ARB criteria. Council, how do you want to settle this case, given that? And do you want to provide these opportunities for the applicant to come up with both ways? So that's not the preferred option of the applicant, because then they have to appeal it, and then they have to have it at the council. So you understand my predicament. We're sort of in a no-win situation, no matter how we vote on it. That being said, the site visit was helpful. We were able to see sort of the condition of the building. Again, I appreciate the applicant's honesty, saying his initial assessment was none of this was insurmountable. So most of the time we have people arguing we can't fix it, but we have a situation where the applicant's saying, given the opportunity, I feel like I can. And so those pictures are valuable, but we don't really have a lot of information that says, other than the applicant's research, to say that it could otherwise be reused. So that's sort of a predicament that we're in. And I just lost my train of thought. I apologize. So the site visit was helpful. We had discussed briefly, or I had mentioned briefly to the applicant, if they were able to go forward, would there be other opportunities to perhaps add additions onto that house, which isn't part of our criteria tonight, but there's opportunity to get better value out of that house if it was allowed to stay. So the background information I feel is helpful. We do not have a lot of the history of a lot of the properties and structures in town. So regardless of the demolition permit or not, it's good that we're starting to gather that information on it. Most people, when I talk to you about what's historic in the town, it's based on, is there some person, place, or activity that contributes to American history? Well, our history is the town burned down. So we don't have a lot what would normally register with the state or federal level, other than the church, I think, and then the museum, the who's the house that Bond lived in? McCormick House. The rest of these structures have been so modified over time that they would unlikely be able to achieve anything other than that. What our ordinance does say is that buildings that are over 50 years old, and a historic building is one that's specifically identified on the contributing structure list. So I think how the town defines it is less about was a person or place there, it's the architecture, the collection of all these buildings. And it's somewhat subjective. Some would say, I don't like that particular architecture. But the sort of the variety of architecture is what tells how the town was built over time, right? From bungalows to Cape Cods to those sorts of things. So when we look at our criteria, it does list it as a structure. The comp plan lists it as a structure worthy of preservation. You have the survey form, which identifies it as historical context of 1940s domestic architecture, colonial revival, Cape Cod structure. We have other criteria that says, removal, would this affect the preservation of general historic atmosphere of the town? Even though there's a probability that could build something similar back, you're still removing that style, architectural style. And then lastly, we have had success of late with some of these smaller structures being redone. Cookies and Cream getting moved, Marias being adaptively reused. So I feel challenged that we have a lot of policies and ordinances and criteria that lend itself to say we should not support the application, but it's not without realizing that puts the applicant or puts the owner in a really precarious situation. So I have drafted some findings to that effect. I'm still going to get the download. We'll get the download from the council or to the council next week about other options. So I feel like there's an opportunity with if we were to deny the application, that there's still a remedy with the council that would allow the Beans and the owner to potentially keep both properties. No guarantee of that, but the council was at least going to consider it, and we'd like to see that. I'd like to see that. I think it's preferable to have that exercise go through, and I don't know that would happen if we were to approve the application tonight. The council would be as motivated to keep looking at that option. So I thought a lot about this, Mr. Bean, Ms. Bean. I understand the situation that you're in. I just feel like, based on our charge, we're really put in a precarious sort of situation to be able to help you. But there are other options in the works that hopefully can get you to where you need to be, but there's no guarantee. So,
Understand that. But what really gets me, I had the planning commission, I think he was the chairman of the planning commission, send an affidavit that they approved my house. And I basically was told that we were lying about it. And I mean, that's upsetting. I lived in this town a long time. You know, I mean, I wanted to make sure everything was done like it was supposed to be done. That's why I applied. And of course, everything's missing. I didn't keep, that's 30-some years ago. I didn't keep any records. I mean, we got some old check stubs and stuff, but the ink's gone off of it. You can't even see them. We got boxes and boxes of receipts, you know, but, and I mean, I think I've got another witness, my electrician. I can bring him. He saw the permit down there. I mean, I talked to him a couple weeks ago at a funeral. And, I mean, if we need to come up here and let him testify in person, I mean,
okay.
I don't know what else to do.
I can pass that along to the council. I'm sorry.
Right, and I understand that. I think for us, and this was part of our discussion earlier today, because I'm newer to the town history. So that was my question, is clearly it's been built, y'all have paid taxes on it, so it's a known structure here in the building, I mean, in the town. And so the difficulty, as Marshawn said, for us to say, okay, go ahead and tear one of the buildings down just so that you can kind of get through the zoning issue, that's not one of the reasons, that's not a, something that we can use to just say to go ahead and demolish. So it puts us in a bad position, because we want to help you, and I understand that, but I also understand that were it not for the fact that you have two buildings on that one lot, you would be keeping them both if it wasn't just to satisfy kind of the zoning requirement.
Yeah, I mean, I built it as the in-law suite.
Right.
Because my mother lived in the other house and she had heart problems, and that's why I built it, to be close to her in case she needed it.
Right. He says it much more eloquently because this is his field of his expertise. But, when it comes down to it, I just, I read the guidelines and it says you can do this if this. And so I feel like we set the wrong precedent if we say, okay, go ahead and demolish it, when we would hold somebody else to a different standard just because we want to get you to where you want to go. And that's hard for me because I know you guys are in that position.
I have a question. If you take it to town council, if they vote no, that means we keep it?
So the way I would see it, sir, and Emily, correct me if I'm wrong. So if the ARB were to deny your application, you would have the opportunity to appeal that decision to the council. The council will then decide whether or not to uphold our decision or allow the demolition to go through. My hope is, or not my hope, well, what I was hoping, sorry, I can't talk tonight, in bringing it up to the council is to say, can we spend some resources on figuring out, is there another option for you to be able to keep those two buildings? And at the same time that if you appeal this decision, at the same time that they're having to consider whether or not to uphold our decision or overrule it. If they uphold our decision, the building can't come down. If they overrule it, then you can go demo it. The suggestion of denying it and taking it to the council is that hopefully they're, at the same time that they're reviewing your appeal, they're also looking at these other options with the lawsuit to be able to settle it. If we're successful in coming up with an option that keeps it, then I would think the demolition permit would just go away, right? So, but that requires you to wait another month. So I figured either way, you want to get out tonight, and that's what we're.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line, everybody's missing the fact that we got a building permit.
Okay.
We And nothing's gone back to, you know, the responsibility. I did everything as a citizen that needed to be done to put that.
Okay.
And nothing can be found. I can't find anything. I mean, most people, 30-some years, I've been through, what, two marriages and 30-some years, you know how things go. Well, y'all probably don't, but I do.
Not been divorced yet. So,
Finish my question.
I'm sorry, yes, ma'am.
Okay. We go to the town council meeting,
Mhm.
what's next?
So the council meeting, October, will be the October council meeting? October 4th? So, what's that? Okay.
What happened to September?
September, not unless, our work session is next Monday, not unless the town council has decided to discuss it next Monday to put it on the agenda for September.
Essentially,
As
the,
of lately, the town council does not want anything added to the agenda after the work session agenda's been posted.
so essentially, the agenda's been set.
Okay. But you would have to, if the consent, I'm sort of getting ahead of myself. If the consensus of the, of the ARB is to deny it, then there's a time frame. I think you have to, it's just as simple as sending an email in, correct? Just saying, hey, we wish to appeal this decision to council. Please put it on your first available agenda. And then the mayor will have to decide whether or not to put it on December or September or October. So that would need to happen as quickly as possible, the appeal. So, but I'd rather get the sense of the ARB before we go down that. I don't want to speak for the ARB.
So, as I see it, my limited realistic knowledge.
Do you mind coming up to the mic? It's just easier to
Hear you better.
Good evening, sorry about that. So in my limited real estate knowledge, this application initially was approved by the BZA. The BZA approved them to hold both structures.
Not this application.
Not this, not the COA application, but I'm talking about having both structures stay there. Which according to me, or legally, it is a legal body, which if they've approved it, and I know that the town council still wanted to take them to court. Now, if you guys deny the COA application tonight, now you've got two legislative bodies within the town that are saying, keep these structures. You know, I don't know if, again, I don't want to read too much into it, but is there something else going on there? The town attorney approached me as an individual applicant to see if we could take a structure down, and that's what started this, or opened up this can of worms. You know what I'm saying? So, are we just going to go around in circles again, or? Because, as the Beans have said, and you folks said it too, they want a decision, they want to get out of this. You know, and we're going around in circles. The other thing is, they also have a court date, which has already been assigned, which is October 25th. So if this goes to the next October council meeting, that's saying, hey, I think we're ready to go to court, which they are.
Okay. I can let,
And
go
maybe
ahead.
if I could add to it, so this all started when there was a request for a zoning permit in order to go to the building department and work on the structures and ultimately subdivide the structure on the parcel so that both structures could be utilized as residential units. Upon our research and not being able to find everything we needed to have myself as the zoning administrator sign the document allowing for that to happen, we found that I cannot do that legally because of the zoning ordinance. What currently stands on that parcel today does not allow me, we have no record of it being what we call a non-conforming use, meaning that at the time it was built, everything was per code, everything was done properly, everything was inspected, and we, as the town, changed our zoning ordinance, thus making it a non-conforming use. So I cannot find that documentation, and that is what triggered this issue. So today, as it stands legally, I cannot sign any document allowing them to pull building permits to even work in the two structures. So that is what's come up, is that with our zoning ordinance today and all of the lack of information proving that it was a non-conforming use, we're stuck at a zoning crossroads. We are stuck at what I legally can and cannot do. So working with the town attorney, we did what we deemed appropriate. We sent out a determination, and it was appealed. It went to the Board of Zoning Appeals. They overturned my determination, and thus we are now headed to the circuit court. So that's the very quick 30,000 view of that. I can certainly invite Martin in to give a more descript, exact breakdown of what happened there. So with that being said, I did research. One of the discussions was, is there an opportunity to rezone this property? And with all of the tools I have today with our zoning ordinance, I, as the zoning administrator for Haymarket, do not see an option at this time for rezoning unless there were to be a zoning text amendment. We are currently working through amendments, but I would need to go back to the town council and have that discussion. I do not know how long that would take.
And for disclosure, that's the conversation Emily and I had today. So that's what's going to be reported out to the council, but they're going to have to vet, do they want to look at a text amendment? Do they want to look at other options? How do they want to approach so that's the nature of the discussion for next week. So I didn't mean yes, we're on the same page. So I guess the challenge is that whole exercise is outside our purview. That's the challenge. There's a lot of this, they're being overlapped, and this demolition is a potential remedy. And I believe your decision to take this one down versus the one in the back is because of the state of condition of the one versus the other. So,
So when the second structure was built, so you're saying that is on record, but not as a, so are you saying the zoning changed after the structure was built, making it a non-conforming use?
So what I'm saying is that the only items we have on record are, in consideration of the second structure, is that we see a permit for the garage. That is the only thing that we see. And then we find that there's minutes from 1987, I believe is the year, that show that there was an addition to the structure that was taken up to the town council, was it? The town council, and that was approved. We do not find anything on record for the single-family home, and so that is where our records don't show that it was a pre-existing non-conforming use if our ordinance had changed significantly. So at the time that was put into motion, our zoning ordinance from the 80s that we were able to locate, I believe the year was 81, but I could be off a little bit, but I know it was from the early 80s. That zoning ordinance only allowed for one single-family detached dwelling on a R1 parcel. So that's where a lot of the discussion came up, and that's where we reach our zoning stalemate, if you will.
And in the town, tax, the way it's taxed in the town and the county, is it taxed as two separate residential properties or one?
It is taxed as two separate. However, that is something that we would have to go out and ask the tax department in Prince William County. They do our tax assessments, and so what they will do, and again, if we wanted the most clear, exact, here's how we do it, here's how we analyze, here's how we say that it's an approved structure, we would have to contact the tax assessor. But they do come and they do surveys on foot, and they get out in the community and they take note of additions. For an example, They were just out last week, they were out on the street looking around, and if your neighbor put up a garage and they didn't permit it through us, the county does not come say, I saw a new garage, was this approved? They just do their tax assessment, but we would have to have one of them come in and essentially testify to how they would have done that.
Okay.
Can I say something? On the, original, very first tax assessment that the county did, it states right on there, 2 single-family residents on this property. I mean, it's never been hidden or anything, I mean, it's right there behind town hall, my goodness.
And
Sorry.
I mean, it's just, you know, we're overlooking it, I did my part to get a permit. Everybody overlooks that to this point, I'm in violation. Well, I mean, I got affidavit from the planning commission, I think it was planning commission, was it? Mine. And then when I got planning commission, yeah. Yeah, Bill Green, who was on the planning commission, they approved, you know, so, I mean, I don't know, I think everybody's jumping into I'm in violation, I may be, but I didn't know when they do this as a violation.
And I'm just trying to understand
Yeah,
kind of the how, because it sounds like you could have been permitted, you know, you built the structures, and to your point, and this is not what you did, but I'm saying I could build a second structure on my property without getting permits. I'm not saying that you did that, but then if the assessors come and do their own kind of survey, they do their assessments kind of separate and apart from what may or may not have been permitted. Is that correct?
Yes. I don't want us, as the ARB, to get too far down the zoning rabbit hole. Since this is a case, the zoning issues are going to the circuit court.
Right.
I want us to make sure we stay on the demolition
Gotcha.
application.
I appreciate it. And that was just, I needed to
Yeah,
understand
there's
that piece of it.
background.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Madam Chairwoman, and Emily, if I may just go back to a couple of things you said about the rezoning issue. I know you said that because of the rezoning issues, you cannot have 2 single-family homes on that parcel. At some point, I had also made a suggestion of even doing maybe a land condo, and I know this is outside of the ARB application or the COA application that we're talking about. But if both structures were to stand, we could even look at possibly doing a land condo and having both structures stand. The other thing about not locating records was I know that there was a fire in the town of Haymarket a while ago, and you know, is there a possibility of records being lost at that time?
I would just say that, again, this discussion goes back to what our active court case is, and so the board, unfortunately, the board does not have really any say on that topic, so I would ask that we get back to the demolition application.
Sure.
The last thing I would say on that is you're always welcome to address the council. So at the next council meeting, if you wanted to come and make your case to the council, they're likely to discuss it in closed session anyway, so that would be good background and context for them to be able to have. So, okay.
Are we gonna get on the docket for the second? That's the plan.
Yeah. If it is denied, it goes to the council, I will, as a liaison, I will reach out to the mayor about it, so.
So you're looking at November before we have an answer.
Well,
In October,
Gotcha. So we'll ask if the ARB, depending on the ARB vote, if we can talk to the mayor about it, if that's the case, so, okay, for September.
Another statement, and, you know, we're not trying to drag this on, but if we have to go to the circuit court, my husband and I have to represent ourselves, because the lawyer we had that just stopped said it would be $35,000 to $50,000 to represent us. We just don't have that. So if something is not done by October 25th, we're gonna have to represent ourselves. And we're intelligent, but we don't know the lingo of lawyers.
I'll pass that along to the council.
So if we lose, our next step would be the Supreme Court. And I would have to get ACLU to come in and help us. really frustrating.
And as I opened up with the comments, I think it's frustrating for us as well, because the ideal situation would be to keep the structure. So,
But you don't have to drive 150 miles.
understood, yeah, understood, yes, ma'am. Thank you for indulging me, ARB members. I did prepare some findings similar to what the ARB looked at when the Payne Lane property was put in, so I can read those and have you review them and see what you think. So I do have copies, so, which I already found a typo. So, oh, take one, pass it down. Could you pass it to as well? Mr. Ms. Bean, please don't take offense to these when I read these. This is based on our criteria, so. Emily, do we have a zoning permit number? I didn't see a zoning permit number on the thingamajigger.
This one's gonna be 2021-07.
No problem. And it's COA ZP or does ZP?
ZP 2021-07.
21 or does 0712? 071221. Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, I would move that the ARB deny zoning permit 2021-0712-2021, 6712 Jefferson Street, Bean Baker House, based on the following. One, the application is inconsistent with the stated purpose of the old and historic district overlay. The subject structure is designated a historic building within the old and historic town of Haymarket, both by the age of the structure, i.e. 50 years or older, and by zoning ordinance definition, i.e. designated as a contributing resource or structure by the town's comprehensive plan. The purpose of the old and historic district overlay is to protect against destruction of such historic resources. The application is inconsistent with the town of Haymarket comprehensive plan per table 16 of the plan, historic building inventory, 6712 Jefferson Street, historical name Baker Bean, is designated historic and worthy of protection in the town of Haymarket. The plan states historic structures are important because they contribute to the Haymarket's sense of place and provide tactile lessons on the cultural influences of the community. The plan also cites historic resources as fragile and non-renewable. If they are destroyed, the loss is permanent. For the Virginia Department of Historic Resources Architectural Survey Form, the historic context of the structure is 1940s domestic architecture, and it is acknowledged as a contributing resource to the town, to the Haymarket Historic District. The colonial revival, colonial spelled wrong, I apologize, Cape Cod style structure reflects the evolution of building styles in the town of Haymarket over the town's history. For the matters considered by the ARB, the continued existence of the subject structure will preserve the general historic atmosphere of the town. The structure's position on the lot contributes to the historic streetscape along the town's southern gateway. The application's materials do not sufficiently describe alternatives to demolition and why such alternatives or rehabilitation of the structure is not considered feasible through building surveys and other structural analysis. I'll pause here to say I understood why you didn't submit that. We discussed that earlier, because why would you pay for that survey given your preference to keep the buildings? Application materials describe conditions and required remediation similar to other historic structures in the town that have been adaptively reused and are reasonably expected to have a market value that exceeds rehabilitation costs. For the matters to be considered by the ARB, these rehabilitated structures promote the general welfare consistent with the listed ARB criteria. So that would be my motion, Madam Chair, and we need a second.
A second.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, again, as we've talked about, in our purview, I don't find that we meet all the criteria to approve the demolition. I wish we could do that to help you guys, but it's a means to an end for a different kind of problem this is being solved, so I don't find the criteria for that. So I would move for the denial of the demolition. You guys have any thoughts or comments?
Questions where I got the content from?
Bonnie and I are coworkers, so I want to rescind myself from vote just because of our professional relationship and, yeah,
And it looks like we abstain.
abstain, I'm sorry.
So when we go for the vote, we just abstain.
Okay.
Person,
Aye.
Howard,
Abstain?
King,
Aye.
Schneider,
Aye.
Utz.
So that means that the application was denied. As the applicant, you have your right to appeal within 7 days to the town council.
Are we gonna, when will we find out if we get on the council's next meeting?
If you would like to submit your appeal document, it can even be a handwritten,
What?
if you go ahead and submit your appeal to the clerk, and you can handwrite that, she can follow up with you. If you leave a phone number, we can call you and let you know what meeting it will be on.
Thank you for. What's that?
Yes.
Just updates in general, we have our projects that are currently ongoing, Van Meters under construction, finalizing all of their grading work. They will be going to the building department here soon. The hotel, as you've seen across the street, is moving right along with the finalization of their facade work, and they're still projecting opening of January 2022. And the old dentist, or the old BB&T building has opened as the dentist office. Dr. Moon moved from the Food Lion Shopping Center down to this new location. And we have Aldi's working on getting their grand opening to happen in early October. And otherwise, that is about everything for old business.
Is the grading for the Van Meter property, are they waiting kind of on next steps? I noticed that they kind of slowed down a little bit. You would
They've-
know more because you guys are back there, but it seemed like it hadn't seen a lot of movement in the last.
They've slowed down a little bit. They had some weather issues that they had to work around. They're also working on some of their utilities. They are having to readjust some of the stormwater. So they were waiting on that plan to get final approval. So that is something that has occurred, and they'll be working again soon.
I will acknowledge that they're on the backside of the house, they're operating every day. I will say they've respected the noise ordinance, but at 7:01, those dozers are rolling. So on the backside, they've finished the stormwater pond. They've raised the grade almost 10 feet. So when I walk out my door, I look at at a berm. But they seem to be moving forward. So on old business, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you this earlier today, the yoga studio, when did you want us to look at their landscape plan?
So they're currently still in site plan
Okay.
review. They are delayed with their site plan, so that's not coming up anytime soon.
Okay. Thank you. And then, any luck on having the contractor give us an estimate on the town hall signs?
No, we've not had luck. I may be reaching out to a new contractor, unfortunately.
Okay. That's all I had, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Okay, new business?
New business, Carter School is, I thought they were gonna be coming in here soon, but it looks like they might actually be doing a little modification to their site plan to make their structure a little bit bigger. So the architecturals will probably be delayed a little bit. We might see that late fall, early winter. other new business, well, it's kind of planning commission update, never mind. That's all I have for new business.
Planning Commission, the Crossroads Village application was voted 3-2, and now will go to council. And the public hearing for the zoning text amendment is tentatively scheduled for September 20th.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was the Starbucks that came back through at the Crossroads?
Yeah, 3-2, and now it's going to council, right? For
Yes, so what officially came back in is a SUP for a
Thank you.
restaurant drive-through, and the applicant said at the meeting that it'll be a Starbucks, and that's gonna be scheduled for town council on September 7th.
What was it? Was it previously that, or was it previously something different?
Previously, it was labeled as coffee shop
Oh, that's a special exception use as well. Okay,
with a drive-through.
gotcha. The ZTAs, when would you like us to, both of you, when would you like us to start reviewing? I guess we're supposed to be doing that already. The old and historic overlay language.
Anytime, we'll make that document available again, so
Okay.
anytime you guys have comments, to please let us know.
Do you expect to move it out that night? So Madam Chair, if I could suggest, if we wanted to put that on our agenda next month for review, and then are you expecting to vote it out that night, or are you expecting to take a month or two? Point being that if we can take it at the October ARB, that's enough time to get it to the commission before they make a final decision.
Commission's been working on it for probably 8 months. So we made some minor modifications to the old and historic overlay, but if you guys work on it next month and you have something put together, we can take it to the planning commission, and it all depends on public input.
Oh, we still have our September meeting, don't we? Okay, I'm sorry, I keep thinking we're going right into October. All
We
right,
have
feels like.
September 15th, which
Yeah.
is before the public hearing for the planning commission. So definitely, let's see, that's 3 weeks. So I would ask that everybody come prepared with their comments, and then we finalize the comments that night and send them over to planning commission.
Is the historic overlay district also being amended at the same time, or just the text?
It is being yes, it is
Okay.
being amended as well.
Okay. Madam Chair, if it's okay, could you send us just the old and historic Haymarket revisions that the commission's proposed to the ARB?
Yes, I can, you just want that section. You don't want the entire document. You just want that one article.
what, the map? Just the map?
No, just the text of the ordinance. And then did you change the definitions of historic at all?
I have to verify.
Okay. But if we could get the definitions of historic structures from the definition section, and then just the overlay district standards, unless you feel like it affects other things. Are we still reviewing buffer amendments, or I can't remember if those are
Wasn't
all.
it something about 1950? Wasn't that?
Yep, that was modified in the overlay language.
So,
1950, yeah.
We have not messed around with the buffers
Okay.
or really the landscaping. We modified some of the landscaping material, but we kept it all Virginia native plants and all things that were easily located at, nearby nurseries, but also things that would long-term maintenance be suitable for our area.
the reason why I brought it up, I think, and Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, at one point there was a revision that said, or a provision that gave a waiver to some of the landscaping requirements per the ARB's recommendation or review. But if that's not there, that's fine.
I believe that is there.
Okay.
I will look and see.
Okay.
If it is, I'll send it.
Two things that come to mind. Do you mind if we tackle this for a second? So the ordinance says any building 50 years or older. That's
Modified.
so to say just from 1950 on? The idea is that just had that rolling thing where my house, my townhouse in Monmouth Street Commons could be deemed historic if I lived there as long as I we'll probably wind up living there. So what was it really meant to address? And it seems more of, Emily, if this is correct interpretation,
That were built.
the contributing resource list in the comp plan seemed to correspond to that, at the time, those were 50 years and older. Well, since that list was created, we've done all these subdivisions in town. So, Emily, would that be a correct way to describe it? Do you think that that's what the 90/50s came from? Was it corresponded to the contributing resource list, or?
Yes.
Okay, so that we fixed that.
Yeah, now it's been changed, so if it was 1950 or older, it's
Okay.
considered.
Okay. And then the other one was, I guess we would probably, the big one at 6.2, Barton is more or less suggested we revisit the demolition permit criteria. And then there used to be a provision for 1 year, the sunset clause, if you got permitted for a demolition, or any COA, not just demolition, but any COA, after a year, it sunsetted. Was there any interest in trying to keep that again, or no? Or because now it was taken out. No, before it was, the last revision, it was taken out. Was there any interest in putting that back again, or?
For how long your permits?
Yeah, a period of validity, or like a
Yes,
year?
we added that back in so that I believe all of your permits are now a 1 year for the ones that come to the ARB.
Awesome, okay, that's all I had, Madam Chair, thanks. Thanks, Matt.
Is there
Matt
any
Brown.
requirement for, so for example, if something was permitted to be demoed and then that year lapses, then are there any requirements then on like building remediation or like penalties or anything like that? Just in thinking, I don't know how often that happens. But if something should be demoed and then it's not, and it's just sitting there, what recourse is there?
We have that happening. We have a demolition permit that was approved, and the board at the time set a condition that they could not demo the building until they had active building permits. And so now it is sitting vacant, dilapidated, overgrown, and about once a year, I have to touch base with the parcel owner to have them clean it up. It's an attractive nuisance, so that is definitely an issue. I think that at that time, we were under an assumption that the applicant was going to have a site plan approved and building permits within, say, a 3-month time period, but that did not occur. So I think in that situation, lesson learned, we shouldn't make a condition on when you receive a permit if the intent was to actually demolish the structure. So we can write something into the ordinance on that, but I think it was also a big lesson that we all learned on not to do.
Are we is that piece of it coming out, the demolition is only approved based on having an approved building or site plan for,
Yes, that's coming out.
yeah.
And I
Then that kind of answers that in a sense.
think we also had that in our guidelines.
Yeah.
Which is problematic, so.
Right. That was kind of why I asked, like, what is our recourse there? Okay.
The other thing that everybody's done before, like with the buildings across the street, because it was pitched as a public safety hazard, was to say you have 120 days. So that way it didn't sit. It was the opposite of that other argument. It was just to say you can't just get approval and just sit on it and continue to let it fall apart. So that worked. The buildings came down within 120 days, and the hotel started going forward. So.
Any other council updates?
Quick council updates. We started, what are they called? ARP funds? ARPA funds. That's the federal monies that we got, stimulus monies we got with COVID. It's about $1.6 million that we're going to get overall. Okay. And so the Treasury has not given us the final rules on how we can use it. So we've received this money, it's sitting in the bank, it's getting interest, but with the consultant that we use to administer our COVID funds, they've offered or proposed to manage our ARPA funds. The first thing that we feel confident about is stormwater. So if we wanted to move forward with the park project, which is the sidewalk, redo this site and then do the turn lane, we could potentially use some of those monies for the stormwater elements of those, which are typically some of your biggest costs. We also were looking at prioritizing the project. So we have about $600,000 available to do some of these projects. So right now, the general thinking is we'll go after the park sidewalk first, and then we'll start to move on finishing the design of these plans. And then hopefully, once we get through that, we'll know what we can do with the ARPA money. And then by the time we go to construction, we can start doing that. There's also some opportunities for loans and grants that at the same time we can go after and look at. So hopefully we'll start to see things moving. That's why I joined the council, was the tangible stuff so you can put your hands on. So it's nice that we're going to be doing that. We are also interviewing candidates for chief of police tomorrow. We hope to make a decision hopefully within the next few weeks on a police chief. And we otherwise are fully staffed, and hopefully you guys had a chance to meet the other officers.
They've been in and around, and they are quite active out on 55. They pull people over right in front of UCA Healthy Paws, and so we sit on our front porch and we're like, oh, another one.
So
Good.
Yeah.
they give out stickers, and apparently the kids now are really demanding stickers. So we did a strategic session on Monday. That's where we started talking about prioritizing these projects, and there's going to be some information this fall about, and is it the newsletter? How do we wind up agreeing? We're going to put some information out to transparency. This is what we're doing with these projects. Here's the monies we received. Here's how we expect to distribute them, and just get hopefully support from the community that that's where we're going with it. So we're even doing some fun stuff, maybe using QR codes and some other fun stuff to do that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Sure.
Yep, I made the motion.
All right, on favor?
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for not making this a long night. I'm exhausted.
I know, I've been down